I am here with Laura Marquez-Garrett with the Social Media Victims Law Center. In case you're not familiar, they represent thousands of families who have suffered harms through their experiences on social media. So, Laura, thank you for jumping on. We have some exciting news today, right?
We do.
Laura and I recently recorded a pretty explosive podcast episode available now. It's called They're Coming for Your Kids Next. And you can listen to that on all major podcast platforms. But today we're here to talk about a huge lawsuit that parents should be aware of. So for people who aren't familiar with this lawsuit, can you give us like a brief rundown?
Sure. So the lawsuit, which was first filed in October of 2022, relates to the death and harms of children from fentanyl poisoning and generally drug distribution, but primarily fentanyl poisoning that is occurring on and because of the Snapchat platform. So it's really all drug distribution related harms. The reason why this lawsuit is against Snapchat is that the prevalence of that occurring on Snapchat.
And how many families are involved?
So currently filed, there are 65 families. But there are dozens of others that we're waiting to see what would happen. And frankly, there are hundreds, if not thousands of others, I think, out there who have lost their children through fentanyl poisoning, again, which distribution was occurring through the Snapchat platform.
So is it like 63 of the 65 children of these families died from the fentanyl overdoses from the drugs that they received through a drug dealer on Snapchat?
That's right. So the filed ones, 63 of the 65 children ultimately died.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There was a big win for parents this week. So what's the latest update?
Yeah. So on Tuesday, the first business day of the new year, the California State Court in the case, which is titled Neville et al. Versus Snap, issued a decision overruling Snap's demur, which in California is essentially a motion to dismiss on the pleadings. Mm-hmm. The standard there is essentially a defendant will argue that even if everything plaintiff says factually is true, because of the way the law is set up, because of the available defenses, they do not have any legal basis to move forward. So in this case, which again was originally filed in October 2022, we amended a couple times. Mm-hmm. Snap filed a demur and argued that even if everything we allege was true, in our, I think it was maybe a 226-page complaint with 990 something allegations, paragraphs, Snap argued based on the state of law, based on Section 230, based on the First Amendment, plaintiffs should not be allowed to move forward. The California Superior Court on Tuesday soundly rejected those arguments.
Amazing.
And of the 16 legal theories that were put forth, 14 of those now get to move forward to discovery.
Wow. Okay. So Section 230, for those who aren't familiar, so it was set up in 1996, so before any of these social media companies existed, and sort of removes the liability from internet companies for what happens on their platforms when they perform purely editorial functions. But this law was enacted so long ago, and companies like Snap and other social media companies are going way beyond providing just editorial functions, right? And therefore, so the court has rejected Snap's assertion of general immunity under this Section 230. Is that right?
That's a pretty good summary. I think that, you know, for folks who are interested, and I'm sure you'll probably link the opinion, it gives a lot of background on Section 230. And I think, you know, the court really put it best in the decision, and it talks about why Section 230 was enacted. It talks about the term publisher and what that means and how courts have interpreted it. But in reality, what Congress intended, what the statute says. It talks about sort of the history of a lot of confusion that I think you see coming out, where ultimately these companies have been developing and distributing technologies with zero oversight. So courts have had no way of understanding or knowing what was happening. And essentially the court is saying, look, you know, we have a right, the public has a right, the people have a right to see what's actually happening, to better understand, to conduct discovery, to get information. The opinion also talks about products liability law and how that came to be. So it's all around just a really incredible opinion. I think that goes in depth in terms of looking at the history of these laws that these companies have relied on for so long.
Yeah. I'm proud of the courts for thinking about it proactively. And this hasn't been the case, right, in past years. Big tech has been able to hide behind Section 230. Right.
That's it. Right. So you say it hasn't been the case, but that's exactly the answer, is that big tech is hidden.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's why there's been a lot of confusion with the courts, because the courts have not been given the full story. They have not been given the information. We see that even now in the cases that are moving forward, where big tech will submit a declaration, and Snapchat is a great example, and that's one of the issues in this case. Snapchat in this case, in particular, these fentanyl poisoning cases, was submitting declarations, making statements about how its products work, that at least in one very clear instance, we absolutely believed and understood to be incorrect based on the experiences of young people, what they told us, how we'd seen these products operate. We went out and created some test accounts, and in fact, confirmed our belief that what Snap was saying to the court was false. And you see that with, over the years, you see these companies being able to essentially write their own ticket and say whatever they wanted to say.
Right. That's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So what happens next? You said there's discovery next. Will there be a trial? Like, what's the next steps?
Yeah. So some of it is still, we'll have to wait and see what happens. There's a chance that Snap will try and appeal. They don't have an appeal as a matter of right at this point in the proceedings. So that will have to play out. And really what happens next is discovery. So there is a status conference in this particular case at the end of January. It's January 24th, Los Angeles County Superior Court before Judge Riff. And hopefully we'll talk about some of the timing issues during that status conference. Okay. And the court will sort of decide how things are going to move forward. But ultimately, the next step here is to start conducting discovery and to try and get information as to what Snap was doing, what it knew, how its systems are set up and designed and programmed, and really Snapchat's role in what is absolutely a fentanyl crisis in this country right now among American youth.
Okay. So kind of like what's happening with the lawsuits against Meta, we're getting access to all this behind the scenes information. And so that will happen with Snap now?
Ideally it will. The big difference with Meta and what I think I can confidently say really kicked off a lot of the public's awareness on this was a whistleblower, right? So you have Frances Haugen, now you have Arturo Bejar. You have these incredibly brave individuals who are willing to put themselves out there and risk everything to show us what's going on. And as a result, as a society, we have a lot more information about Meta than we do any of the other platforms. And I think that has driven a lot of the public awareness, people asking questions, including the litigation and the ability to move forward. What is different here? It's that we don't have that for Snapchat. We don't have it for TikTok. We don't have it. We don't have that level of information. So hopefully now we can start to get some of that through discovery. So, but we'll see. It's I'm sure Snapchat has avenues to object and push back. So we'll see exactly what happens. It's sort of anyone's guess at this point. But it's moving forward, right? Discovery is moving forward. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And ultimately this is how our legal system is supposed to work. We are supposed to get access to information. Companies are not supposed to be able to hide everything they say and do and know.
Right. So congratulations to the families on this step. I hope that they're able to celebrate and take a moment to feel hopeful, despite what they've been suffering. Thank you, Laura, for spending the time to update people on this. We will be staying tuned and cheering for all you guys. I think this is one of the most important cases that I've seen, and I'll be following along. So thank you, Laura.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. Take care.
Thank you.